Hi, this is 60 Minutes in Berlin. My name is Victor, and today we have it's Bill Laurance. Not the second, we just talked to Bobby Sparks the second, this is Bill Laurance the first. And an honor to two guys from the collective of Snarky Puppet one day here in Berlin, and we're allowed to talk to you. How are you, Bill?
I'm extremely well, thank you. Yeah, I'm really well. I'm in the middle of my European solo tour, and I have almost a whole week in Germany. So I feel like I'm, becoming a local.
Okay, now I have to ask. You brought up the theme. Why do you like? Why is it so interesting being a local? Is there a reason?
I think the thing is, when you're on tour, it's quite rare that you get the chance to stay in one place for more than 24 hours, and therefore you're just constantly flying through. And when you do have the opportunity to get to know a place, like we've been in Cologne the last 2 or 3 days, and I was in Schwabisch Hall before that, and now here we are in Berlin, and tomorrow I'm in Mannheim. And so I think when you spend extended periods of time in one country, at least, it's you really start to get a sense of the rhythm and the I feel like I'm sort of I don't know, I've just made more friends, and I feel like I'm more understanding with the tempo of Germany, and I don't know. It's just been. This is actually my second tour as a solo artist, as in just performing alone, not with a band. And this is material I've been working on for a long time, but to suddenly be able to share it is quite a cathartic experience, and it's been really nice to have the reactions of the German crowds, because I feel like my music has a lot of classical influence, but also a lot of electronic influence too, which I think are two things that Germany understands and does well.
You touched a point. I was talking to Bobby, and this is crazy. He said, it's not Germany. Here in Europe, we're used to listen to artists somehow. We have the same music as you have in the States, but we're used to listen.
Yes.
And we love if the things get complicated.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and I talked to bands that said, playing here in Germany, we must be complicated. The people love it.
It's true.
But we have to get used to it. Same for you, yeah?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a real attention to detail here, and it's a wonderful thing. It inspires you to find more detail, and it does. It feels like it's a kind of deeper level of listening somehow over here in Europe, and God forbid I will remain part of Europe, We're crossing our fingers that we can turn this crazy Brexit mess around, but I would. It's something I really cherish. My wife is actually half French as well, and her father is a big fan of mine as well, and he's, he's often, I started the tour in Paris, and I find whenever I come to the mainland of Europe, it's a noticeable difference in terms of the attention to detail from the audience, and how receptive they are to, and how respectful they are as well.
It's good to hear. Yeah, we're a bit old-fashioned, and we're different. I don't know how it works out, why we are different comparing to the States. Every country has something wonderful, and it's a bad side as well. Yeah, every country has that. All over the world, I love things, and there are things I don't love that much. And this is one thing we share. You can, but you said it's wonderful to share this music you wrote and playing solo. What is so different for you? What is so wonderful compared to what is different? What's the difference
when performing here?
When performing solo.
Ah, right.
Normally you perform with a band or with a bigger band or even a bigger band.
Yes.
What is so fascinating for you? What is a new experience?
It was quite intimidating to begin with, to try and kind of hold a show together without a band. And at first I started at just the piano, and then as you see, I've kind of developed a whole bunch of extra toys that I've added on top of the piano to sort of create my band. So it's like I replaced the band with synthesizers and drum machines. But there's a kind of depth to performing alone that I've become really fond of, and I find that it sort of calls on a part of my creative performing self that playing with a band doesn't. And there's I don't know, there's it's complete and total freedom when you're performing alone, and you don't get that pure sense of creative freedom that you do when you're playing with other people, you know. So it's kind of intimidating, but it's also like it's kind of the purest form of performing I've found, and I didn't quite anticipate how sort of addictive it was going to become, you know. And it's a huge challenge, but I think I don't know, I find it to be a very profound experience actually to perform alone. It's you know, because you're kind of you really have to dig deep and call on, as I say, a part of my creative self that I wasn't accessing before, you know. So and it's, especially in terms of improvisation, you can go left or right at any point. You don't have to tell the bass player or the drummer where to go.
And you're all alone. You're responsible for everything. Sometimes if it doesn't work out, whatever it is, you can lean back and the colleagues are there, but now you are responsible for everything.
That's right. Yeah. So there's a kind of heightened level of focus as well, and you're completely responsible, you know. So, and in a way, it means you can play with the dynamics more too. Like, you know, you can come right down to just the smallest, tiniest thing, and then, you know, once you add all the toys, you can potentially create a big sound as well. And so, I really enjoy the ebb and flow of the dynamic range that a solo concert provides.
You mentioned you got addicted to this kind of freedom. Does it change your music? Does it change you? And does it change you when you're playing in a band again?
I think it does. I think I like, in terms of my creative pursuits, I like to kind of set restrictions or sort of goalposts. So for this, initially I just wanted to set myself the challenge and see if I could put together a show alone, you know. And it obviously started at the piano, and then I put some effects on the piano, and I thought, okay, what if I'd loop the piano, and then what if I add a sequencer, and then what if I add a drum machine, you know. And gradually I started creating this kind of sonic world. But I think the solo thing is it kind of feeds on itself, you know. And I find the more I explore it, the more you know, different things open up, and I feel like I'm only really just beginning to kind of create the sonic world I was looking for, as far from a solo point of view. And so, you know, there's a lot more to do, I would say.
Just another facet of music, of your music, I think. And I'm not a musician. I have to ask, perhaps you already answered the question, what are the restrictions you normally have, and and where's the freedom if you play them? What are the restrictions?
When you play solo?
No, if you're not playing solo.
I see.
If you're playing a band and you more talk, I don't have the restriction. You told us you don't have the restriction. What are the restrictions you have? Perhaps you suddenly notice, you never noticed before.
Yes. I think fundamentally it's to do with improvisation. I mean, you could still have very free improvisation within the context of a band, but it would, and I've done it as well, and it can also work in its own way, but I think, you know, ultimately when I'm playing with a band, I'm more likely to improvise within the context of a song. And so we'll play the song with the verse and the chorus, and then we reach a solo section which is more open, but it's still within the kind of constraints of the composition. Whereas when I'm playing solo, you know, I can do the same, I can still play a song, but there are moments where I could choose to completely go left and go somewhere, you know, I had no idea I was going to go there. And that's a kind of freedom that you don't necessarily have when you're with a band. You know, I mean, it's something we aspired to find with Snarky Puppy and with my own band. You know, is to be able to just, everybody's feeling to go this way, and now we can all collectively just go there. You know, and that's real magic when that's happening. You know, and everybody's kind of on the same wavelength, and we all just kind of seem to know where we all want to go collectively. You know, and that's when that happens, everybody feels it, and the crowd responds, and those are the moments you're trying to create. But when you're alone, it's kind of I don't know. There's another depth to it, and it's a heightened sense of freedom.
I actually can see that, how you feel. I have a phrase when I talk to someone, I said, "Oh, wow, that's it." If people or even artists are talking about the things they love, they start to lighten up. That is the moment I want to capture. And just talking about that, you've got an aura, and then you lighten up, and it's fantastic. You're living the music. It was a compliment and a thank you as well.
Thanks for saying that. Well, you know, it's the magic. I think I feel very privileged to have experienced that on stage lots of times, and both just from a band member's point of view, but also to experience how that might translate to the audience, and feeling the audience respond to that. And it reminds you that really that's the point of a live concert is for everybody in the room to feel like they are in this moment that is completely unique and would never be the same again. You know, and this is the kind of goal I'm striving for all the time, is to try and find a new way, a new way to say the song, you know, a new way to, because otherwise it just ends up being, you know, you press the space bar and play the song, and there's nothing new, you know. And it's this moment of, it's the sense of feeling like you're in that one once in a lifetime unique moment that makes a concert experience special and memorable.
Actually, I have to think a bit. I want to say a lot, but I have to a bit of thinking. I had a friend of mine, and he was so consequent. He never recorded anything, and everything he did once.
Yes.
Because music is unique. I was thinking of that, and he said, and for you, there are a lot of unique moments with each audience. There is a unique moment, and there's a connection, a special connection that doesn't only happen that evening, that moment.
Absolutely, and I think by an audience making the effort to come out and spend their evening with you, you know, you have to return that gesture and give back and say, okay, well, I'm going to give you an experience that is unique to this evening, you know, and obviously there are songs where the melody is there and you have to play the melody and you play the chord progression, but you know, the way you might play it, the interpretation you give on that particular night, I think needs to feel specific to that particular night, you know, and just trying to kind of hone in on that. Yeah.
I want to provoke you a bit. I forgot the microphone. I'm so in it. I want to provoke you a bit. For me, every good piece of music has to have a good melody. How is it for you?
I agree. I would say that in the past I've written quite a lot of music that didn't necessarily come melody first. It might have come a bass line first or a drum groove first, but you could argue that, you know, even if it's a bass line, there's still a melody within the bass line, or even if it's a drum beat, there's still a melody within the drum beat. So I think that's right. I think I think in terms of phrases, you know, in terms of contour, up and down, and I'm often trying to create sonic worlds, you know, especially in the way that technology is evolving. My new album is kind of really about the exponential growth of technology and how it's moving at such a fast rate that we can't really keep up with it.
We talk live at the Union Chapel, or what are we talking about?
This is a new album that's coming out on the 29th of March entitled Cables, which is part of my solo kind of exploration. It's just me. The whole album is just me on my own.
Ouch, I didn't know about that. I don't have nothing, and I'm so sorry I didn't know about that.
That's quite right.
So let's talk about your new album. Tell me about the Cable and the solo experience.
It's the solo experience. Yeah, so it's inspired by the ever sort of evolving and speeding up evolution of technology, and how it's moving at such a rate we can't necessarily keep up with it. And it's kind of, the album is kind of my first concept album, I would say, and it's kind of, it has a dark dystopian color to it, but I guess I'm trying to raise the question as to our relationship with technology and whether it's something to be more aware of or something to celebrate. And despite this kind of dystopian backdrop, the album attempts to say that the human intent and nature will prevail, I guess.
Yeah, I have a very clear thought of it. As long as technology is a tool, it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. And for you, you're playing a solo concert, you're using a lot of technology, and the other music I've heard, there's a lot of technology in there. And did you think about that? Is this part of it? Did you use technology, specially use it, or didn't you use it? Did you say, no, I don't need it for this album, or what is waiting for us?
I think I was just kind of drawn to it because it's so much a part of our lives now. Like I would like to think of myself as somebody who enjoys the outdoors and the countryside, right? And yet even I find myself doing this all day, you know, and the phone has become, we are all here all day, you know, and it's like we didn't sign up for it, but everybody's doing it. And okay, well, good for you. I mean, maybe not everybody, but it's becoming, you know, I think it's the sort of sinister element for me is just the way that it's kind of encroaching without anybody realizing necessarily, you know, and it's just becoming this part of, you know, social media has just and the internet has just it's changed everything, you know. Before we even had time to say, is that what we actually want, you know? And so I'm just kind of interested in this relationship that we have, and so technology, you know,
speeded life up.
It's, yeah, absolutely, and it allows me to create these kind of sonic backdrops alone, you know, and that's the other thing, is trying to create music responding to the technology. So you can set off a loop or something and then mess it, you know, put a delay on it or mess with it on the filter and stuff, and see how you respond to it on an acoustic instrument, because that's what's interesting for me about this concert, is where the crossover is between the human element, i.e. the acoustic instrument, the piano, and the you know, artificial element, the synthesizers and the drum machines, and where they meet, where is the kind of marriage between them, you know?
Where do they meet?
I'm still trying to work that out. I mean, you know, the whole idea of this concept is the kind of push and pull between the two, you know, and see how they respond. Learning
and getting experience, a kind of curiosity.
Yes, definitely. It's an exploration. I mean, it always is. You know, whatever the project is I'm working on, it's a personal exploration, and that's the joy of it. Is the journey, is the exploration. You know.
That's a wonderful point. I don't know how much time we have got, and I don't want to go too long. And it will be released on the 29th of March?
29th of March.
Oh, cable.
Yeah.
Now I will ask you a question.
Yes.
I prepared you for this. This is a wonderful moment. I didn't know it would be this CD. But why do we all have to buy this CD cable? Why is it so fascinating? Why is it a must-have? Why must it be in my CD player?
I think because it's the most ambitious and mature album I've ever made, I think, and so for that reason I'm really proud of it, and it's very different to previous records I've made. It's using texture and timbre as a compositional tool as opposed to melody or grooves and stuff. But it's like, I guess it's my first concept album, so I feel like when you turn the album, when you press play or you put it on your record player, my hope is that you enter a world. You know, it's like a kind of an audio virtual reality, basically, and
a journey.
And so it goes on a journey, and you are kind of taken through. All the titles have some kind of technological reference. There's a song I wrote about the probe that made it to Cassini that made it to Saturn, called Cassini, which was a fascinating story about the probe that was kind of it was like a sort of amazing human achievement, and people had spent 30 years of their lives dedicated to this one probe. And then there's a song dedicated to the robot on 2001 Space Odyssey, HAL.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just referencing these different technological achievements or characters that we've become aware of, and whether they offer a positive or negative addition to human evolution.
It's always cool talking about an album I've never heard of and I didn't know that will exist. But question concerning when you were recording it, when you were writing it, when you were releasing it, is there a moment when you look back, for you, it's already done. You're waiting only for the day to release it. Yeah, the work is done. Is there something if you look back where you say, I'm so proud of it, that I could make it, that it worked out? Is there something?
Is there a moment?
A moment or something while producing, while recording, playing at this, concerning this new album? Is there something where you look back, it's my new child? Every
Yes.
album is my new child, and I'm proud that this child does what is it you are proud of?
Yes. I think this album was different because it was more reliant on post-production. And so the mixing process was much more drawn out and kind of laborious, to be honest. And so getting that result kind of took longer after the recording process than previous albums, because previous records we just record and we already knew the concept was there and it felt strong. It was in the post-production of this album that we started to kind of find that the pennies started to drop, and I remember towards the end of the mixing process and certain things just falling into place, and it was actually the title track, Cables, which I suppose is a kind of a reminder of the fact that we are all ultimately connected, and certainly in light of this Brexit nonsense, I'm very much trying to campaign for a second referendum, and I'm trying to remind people as I go on tour that we are stronger together, not apart. And Cables is the theme has a very kind of undulating kind of rhythm to it, and it just it's quite repetitive in its melodic content, but it's very fluid. And there's constantly motion in this piece, and I feel like it reflects quite well the sentiment that we are all ultimately connected.
We should be. It happened with the Brexit. Things happen, but here the world is changing in a way that I don't like. But with what we do, we try to be different.
Yes, that's right, and I think that's all we can do is celebrate the things that we love, and there can be a tendency to kind of want to push away the things that are happening, and that has its own place, I guess, but I feel like the most constructive way forward is just to celebrate the things that we cherish, and I think we become quite passive in our approach, particularly to politics, and things like Brexit and Trump are examples of that. And it's just kind of all this stuff is, the very idea that Europe is falling through my fingers as a British person, is completely devastating. And I'm, determined to speak out about that and encourage other people to do the same if they believe that to be the case, because now more than ever we need to be connected, we need to be celebrating Europe.
Technology, we are connected. That's so crazy, because actually now we are connected. Wherever you are in the world, we are connected.
It's true, and it's a strange kind of paradox, because we're so much more connected, but the argument is that everyone's kind of, social media has actually, sort of in some ways killed socializing, or it's having that impact, so it's kind of a catch-22. It feels like we're all more connected, but somehow it's having the reverse effect in some way. So I think we need to be aware of that, and we need to try to acknowledge it and find an alternative.
Cable, Bill Laurance on the 29th of March. We're coming to an end. You have to play a concert, and we have to clean everything up, the mess we made. And three last questions that I always love to ask. So concerning music, is there only 1-2 moments? A situation, somebody you played with, somebody you played at, where you say, that is so wonderful, this moment, I will never forget this. Is there a situation or a memory?
I mean, I've said it before, but in terms of idols I've met, I was fortunate enough to meet Stevie Wonder last year, and I asked him for a pearl of wisdom, and he said, "We are the glue of society, and it's our role and responsibility to bring love and unity to this planet." And so that stayed with me ever since, and I try to kind of live by that in all my decisions in life generally, let alone just creatively, because I recognize the potential power that music can have in terms of bringing people together, you know.
So many questions I would love to ask you. Perhaps we talk another time, and then I will ask a question. The second question is silence. How important is silence for you? At all, or concerning music, whatever you want?
Oh, silence is everything, because without silence, music doesn't have any context, you know. I mean, Miles Davis said it best. He said it's not about the notes you do play, it's the notes you don't. Or it's about, you know, the space you leave, in other words. Like, don't... And he also said, you know, it's like think of it like it's an economy, or so every note costs $1, you know. So you're not just going to go, you know, that's like 50 quid or whatever. So just trying to be more careful about the notes you choose to play, and meaning each note, because then it allows the silence to kind of embrace each note, you know.
And the last one is, no, the opposite thing, a sound, whatever it is, that gives you goosebumps if you hear it, whether it's music, whether it's the rain, whether it's a child's song, whatever is it. Is there something for you?
It's the sound of an orchestra tuning up.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure.
Bill Laurance for 60 Minutes.
Thank you.